What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Panda here. Today we are playing some Watcher of Realms. Guys, we finally have some in-game news regarding this weekend's summoning. Everyone was thinking, oh, we're just getting a regular 2x. That's nothing crazy. We had some rumors going around. We had some in-game notifications drop about some interesting things. And now we have the official announcement in the event tab. Let's dive right into it. And welcome back to the video, guys. Let's go ahead and just take a look. So if you haven't already noticed, guys, we have this notice tab which shows some really interesting things, including a hero gameplay information on Twin Fiend, right? So pretty sure you all are familiar with Twin Fiend and what he does, but we will go ahead and go over that, so don't worry too much. But we have this come in the game. We also had this interesting thing for a character called Admiral Claw. Now, if you aren't a content creator, you aren't on the Forerunner servers, you may not have known who Admiral Claw was, because this was a champion that was on the Forerunner server, and we are getting him into the game, and it's officially been announced that he is coming this weekend in the special ancient summoning. This is pretty exciting because Twin Fiend is a really good champion, even though everyone, at least if you've been playing for a little bit of time, has a Pyros, and or you've been summoning with your ancient summonings recently, you've probably had the luck and probably pulled a Pyros. If you haven't, though, or if you happen to get lucky this weekend, you could pull yourself a Twin Fiend, which is a buffed version of Pyros. He is a lord for the Infernal faction. He is very good in Guild Boss and also very good in other game modes, including a little bit of highlights in places such as Gear Raid 1, as well as in GVG. I've actually seen a couple Twin Fiends Infernal lineups that have been very difficult to beat, so definitely an interesting champion. We love everything about him. He's got some really interesting stuff. The main thing here, though, is that he does get the extra bonus of adding a penetration increase, a crit rate increase, and a crit damage increase when he uses his ultimate meteoric strike, which is really good because you get a ton of extra damage from that, and you also get that extra 5% on the basic attributes, which is really good. And then, of course, his ultimate here also just actually does a pretty large ton of damage. Really powerful. Overall, he's just a very good champion, and he does a ton of damage, which is really good. He does more damage than, you know, Pyros does. The only thing that is a little bit lacking about him is that if you have a A3 or an A5 Pyros and you don't have the ability to get Twin Fiend to A1, Pyros will actually be better than Twin Fiends. However, if you're able to get Twin Fiend to A1, he will skyrocket your damage in Guild Boss because he gets this ability to add vulnerability of physical and magic damage while he is marking for the ultimate. This is really powerful. I will say that there is a little bit of a be careful if you want to pull this weekend, and that is simply because of the fact that we also have Soul Cadence. Soul Cadence is a more recent, more exclusive legendary lord, but he is better, right? He's better, and that's because of the fact that he has the penetration increase, but realistically, crit damage and crit rate is very nice, but you're gonna probably be capping the crit rate on your champions when you're building them for max damage, so that's probably wasted for most of your champions. And although crit damage is nice, a small increase that gives you is pretty low. However, the Lord Seal from Soul Cadence gives you 30% extra damage to elites and bosses, which is crazy good, right? Not only that, but he also just does a ton of damage, guys. I mean, we can go and we can look at some of the damage that he's capable of doing in the Guild Boss. Let me see if the I don't think he's hit in my Guild Boss quite yet, but we can go check the world rankings, and let's go ahead and find a Soul Cadence here. So here is a Soul Cadence. Look at this. He's doing 125 million DPS, which is more than Zillatu, guys. It's more than Zillatu, which is crazy good damage, right? And of course, he's built in like end game gear. He's got this max tier of Twilight, etc. Like, obviously, he's gonna do damage, right? But ultimately, I mean, he's doing a ton more damage, right? If we go and we look at, for example, this Twin Fiend, like look at this Twin Fiend damage is so low, right? I mean, let's go find like even this one. This is an A5 Twin Fiend, right? He's dealing less than 40 million DPS, right? It's kind of crazy in my opinion. But ultimately, Soul Cadence is kind of a reason to maybe potentially not want to summon for Twin Fiend this weekend, because there is a better version of him. However, he is still really good. And we also have this other champion coming to the game called Admiral Claw, which I think he looks really cool, right? Look at that beard. I mean, come on, that beard is just great. And look at the beard physics. It moves. It's really cool. And obviously, like this cannon, I mean, it just looks really cool. I could say cool probably about a billion more times, but guys, Admiral Claw is very interesting looking. I love him. He's a chaotic nightmare champion, which means he's only going to be available from Ancient Summoning. And let's just go ahead and quickly dive in and take a look at his kit, right? So right off the bat, he is a normal damage dealing fighter. That's really awesome. He does splash attack, arena mastery, and a late game. So potentially only really going to be super useful in arena, but let's go ahead and take a look at the kit and find out. So here he increases his penetration by 5% for every 10% loss of HP, up to 30%. So again, this is a chaotic unit. You're going to have these lower health extra damage or lower health special skills happening whenever you are using a chaotic unit, because that's just how the chaotic units work. They work on chaos, right? You lose a bunch of health, you gain a bunch of damage is typically how that works. So we have the basic here, prioritizes enemies within one tile, dealing 100% damage to the main target and 25% splash damage to up to 2 enemies near the main target. If there is no target within one tile, cast Soul Lasher first. So Soul Lasher pulls one enemy in range with chains to the front, dealing 150% damage. This is really nice. One thing I think that is a little weird, though, is that he actually only increases the damage to the main target, not to the splash damage. So the splash damage is pretty negligible, I would assume, just because it's only 25% damage and it doesn't get increased by any way. But having the ability to pull enemies into you could be very interesting, especially in places such as Arena, right, which he's going to really specialize in, because you're probably going to be able to pull him into you and actually get the fight over with quickly. And with the way that this new arena setup works, the sooner you win, the sooner Soul Cadence starts to deal damage to the enemy, and the sooner that they're going to die because they're not able to kill their enemies as fast as you, because they still have to wait for them to walk up or whatever the case may be. So interesting basic. I like it. Let's keep going. So his first passive is Bloodfire Berserker. For every 3 attack, reduces 5% of current HP and increases 2% damage permanently. Upon triggering this effect 10 times, basic attack turns into Bloodstorm Annihilator. Bloodstorm Annihilator increases attack by 20%, but also increases attack interval. Every attack launched reduces 5% of current HP, dealing 180% damage to the main target and 40% splash damage to up to 2 enemies near the main target. So this is interesting. I'm a little curious. I assume that this is for every 3 attacks that you do, is how this is probably worded. It's a little weird to me personally, but I would assume that this is how it works. Every time you do a basic attack, you're going to reduce 5% current HP and increase 2% damage permanently. I'm a little curious if this continues to stack or if it caps at 10. I think that's something I'm a little confused about. Maybe if you guys happen to know, if one of you other content creators or old Forerunner players is playing and you happen to have him, or at least know how he works, I'd be interested to know, does this cap at 20% because it's 2% 10 times, or does this 2% continue to stack throughout the entire fight? If so, that could be very, very powerful. Very powerful. I'll leave it at that. But Bloodstorm Annihilator is really, really good as well, right? We've got 20% attack. That is huge. But then also increasing the attack interval is interesting. It's kind of like a reverse Cetrum, right? You're getting a stronger hit, but it's happening less often, while as with Cetrum, you're getting a faster hit, but it does less damage. So interesting situation there. Definitely like that. I'm also a little curious if the basic with Bloodstorm Annihilator still does the Soul Lasher. I would assume that it probably wouldn't really matter too much, because odds are you're going to have enemies in range anyways, but I'm curious if it would still do the Soul Lasher. But let's go into the second passive. When in Bloodstorm Annihilator state, increases damage to enemies whose HP is below 30% by 20%. And this, of course, goes into a 40% damage increase and a 30% threshold. Really, really nice. Something I didn't check was, is Bloodstorm Annihilator a permanent thing? That's something I'm a little interested about as well, because if Bloodstorm Annihilator is a permanent thing, then this is actually going to be really, really good, right? Um, I was potentially thinking that maybe he could have some potential in Guild Boss. However, because of this right now, I'm going to assume he probably doesn't, right? Just because the Guild Boss never actually loses health. And so because of that, you're never going to actually gain this bonus. But let's go ahead and take a look at the ultimate. So the ultimate is Doom Tether. Pulls at most 5 enemies in range, dealing 250% AoE damage to all. So this is actually really nice because having the ability to, chain people in, pull people in could be really good if you're pairing this with someone such as a Vierna, or, someone who does a lot of very quick AoE damage with a bursty ultimate, could be able to pull everyone in, do a quick slam on the ground with whatever ultimate you're using and get a ton of damage that way. Could be very, very nice for sure. It does seem, though, like the majority of his damage is going to be coming from Bloodstorm Annihilator and the stacking passive of Bloodfire Berserker. Very interesting overall, though. Then we have an arena attack range increase. Pretty typical. Not too bad. He is an 18 cost, which is pretty good. I don't think it's anything super crazy. And he does have a block of 2, which is pretty standard. Let's quickly take a look at the Awakens. His A1 when in Bloodstorm Annihilator state increased penetration by an additional 10%. So remember, he has this 5% penetration up to 30%. So he's going to have 40% penetration if you get him to A1 when he has that talent procced, which is actually really, really powerful. Then we go into A2, flat attack, makes sense. A3, when in Bloodstorm Annihilator state, attacks inflict vulnerability physical damage. This is nice. I don't think it's anything super crazy because there's a lot of champions that actually provide vulnerability. But because it's on every basic attack, it's going to be up pretty much 100% of the time. And because it does splash damage, you're going to be able to have that relatively a very good uptime. So his A3 is actually probably going to be pretty good in terms of uptime and potential damage increases you're going to gain from that. Then we have the A4, which gives an additional 8% penetration. Again, this is a Ancients Legendary, so odds are not going to happen. But if you do happen to get Admiral Claw to A4, that's going to bump him up, right? He's got 10%. Here's 8% plus that 30% from passive. We're at 48% penetration. Very powerful. Then we go to A5, and when in Bloodstorm Annihilator state, attack interval doesn't increase. So that is very, very interesting. So if you can get Admiral Claw to A5, he's going to be ridiculous. And again, I know you're saying, Panda, of course he is. He's an Ancient Legendary. A5 Ancient Legendary is ridiculous, obviously, right? But ultimately, I think this is going to be a very interesting banner. I am excited to potentially pull this weekend. I need to make up my decision about whether I'm going to or not, because I could really use Twin Fiend, and I have been lucky enough to pick up a legendary Soul Stone so that I could take him straight to A1. However, the fact that Sul'Kadens exists in the game and the fact that my Pyros is doing a relatively good job, I don't know if it's necessarily worth it to go in and pull for Twin Fiend. However, Admiral Claw does look very interesting, and I would be very excited if I were to get him. And seeing as how I just pulled a Legendary Lord in... wrong area. Since I just pulled a Legendary Lord in Morrigan, I don't know. I feel like maybe my luck is not there, right? Because, pulling Morrigan and also happening to get Eloin on the same weekend... yeah, it's a pretty good chance I won't get anything, but we'll have to see. It could be a very interesting situation. But guys, let me know in the comment section down below. Are you excited about a Twin Fiend 10x and or Admiral Claw? And are you going to be pulling for him? Because I think a lot of people are probably going to be pulling for Twin Fiend. But again, keep in mind that Sul'Kadens exists, right? So there's a good chance that you're going to pull this Twin Fiend, and then you may get Sul'Kadens down the line, and he's just better. So there's a good chance that maybe it would be a wasted pull, but we'll have to see. I'd like to get everyone else's opinions on it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Make sure to hit a thumbs up button and tell me you liked the video. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to be notified when all my content goes live. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.